So right now, people are viewing us. We should probably talk about something sort of interesting, right? Right?
Ben, you want to?
Maybe.
Well, I think,
oh, there's the chat.
Oh, here we are.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having us here, Ben.
Yeah, welcome, guys. Welcome, everybody. Conundrum number 14.
No way. That's amazing. Yeah. Is that counting the ones that took place at the live event? Like in the live, in the actual, where the people...
Yeah.
Performances? No way. That's awesome, man.
That's total. We kind of did the first one with just me and a drummer from Sweden, from Stockholm, who was visiting. And that's kind of what gave me the idea. But that was like several years ago.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I thought.
Okay, let's.
Oh, hey, hey, all. I realized that I did.
More than 15.
Live streaming has stopped.
What happened?
Nice.
Okay, we're on now, right?
We're back, baby. Yeah.
It's the automated voice never came on this time. Okay, cool. Gotcha. Cool. Sounds good. So you were saying
this is. We have the Partridge Family view now. It's good. I can see.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming. I'll just do a few like housekeeping notes because that's fun because that's what you do at a real show when you're at a real venue. You do housekeeping. Since everybody knows where their own bathroom is and their own fire exits, I won't talk about that. You can remind yourselves. And yeah, feel free at any time during the performance to go to the bathroom. You won't be interrupting anybody, so that's great. Pour yourself another coffee, another beer. But the Conundrum housekeeping notes are a couple of thank yous. So I just want to, right off the top, thank Diane Cadota and the Barking Sphinx Performance Society for their support, ongoing support. Greg Samek, who is another host and has been the primary host this year and last year at his great venue. And so thank you, Greg Samek, and Adrian Avendaño, who is my co-host today, and also taking care of all the tech stuff and just in general being amazing. Thank you, Adrian. And then our guest, very special guest. I've been wanting to have these guests on for a while, so I'm really excited to have two former schoolmates of mine, Alicia Murray and Issah Contractor. And yeah, our two drummers today. And also just a quick thank you to Bucha Brew, the kombucha company in Vancouver, and they've sponsored us this year. It's a Bucha Brew. And I also wanted to just do a quick land acknowledgement to acknowledge that we're on the territory of the Musqueam, Tsleil-Waututh, and the Squamish people. So acknowledging that we're on their unceded territory. And I also, in the same vein, wanted to give a shout out to a friend of mine, Dakota Bear, who is doing some excellent work with the Indigenous people and is a fabulous hip hop artist and just started his own clothing company called Decolonial Clothing. So if you want to check out Dakota Bear and his new company, Decolonial Clothing, you can check him out on Instagram, Dakota Bear. You'll find him there, Dakota Bear. So I think that's it for housekeeping. And usually what we do is we just show the solos and then we kind of chat about it after that. And does anybody have anything to say?
No, I'm good. I was Alicia's solo.
Great. All right.
How are we doing, Adrian?
Yeah, we're doing good. I just checked in with the chat asking if the stream was looking okay. Len, thank you for your input. So yeah, we are. I'm gonna transition to Alicia's solo, and then we're gonna enjoy this beautiful performance, and we'll be back and we'll talk about it.
Really liking the mustache, Ben.
Thank you. You should. Have you tried one?
You know, I haven't, man. I've actually, to be honest, I've never tried a mustache. I find, and I don't know if I should say this, but you know, I think that different. I don't hear anything. I don't see anything. Am I supposed to be seeing the solo?
Hey y'all. Alicia,
Hey,
that
Yeah.
was wonderful.
thanks.
That was so cool. I love the just the continuity of your phrases and the sonic idea. It's just like it really it really developed over the span of the solo, and it just like it was so cool. I love the ambient textures with like with the cymbal scrapes, like, and with you still playing on the toms, like that combination just like it gets me every time. Basically, I hear that, it's just like yes. That's I love that sound. I love that
Cool.
texture.
Yeah, that sounded beautiful. Great playing, Alicia.
Thank you.
Like conceptually or even like directionally, where it's coming from in terms of influences? What would you say that is? Like, who are your main influences and conceptually and musically? Where is that coming from? Because it sounds beautiful to me. It sounds, it's very free, very textural, and yeah, very expressive. So I would love to hear more about what the context is for that improvisation.
Well, so I was really nervous recording something free like this. Most of the free stuff I've done is like in the context of something else, and it like happens and then it's done, and then I never have to hear it again.
Right.
And so I guess like a lot of the sounds that I like have come out of like different sections and musicals and stuff where there's you know, spaces that just need to be filled with like, you know, on the paper it'll be like creepy drums or like, you know, something, and you have to like fill a bunch of minutes with like ambient sounds and noise.
That's interesting. Now, would that be more like a modern musical? Because that approach seems a little bit more modern in terms of like on the score. Can you give me an example? I don't know if you know.
I know most of the musicals I've done are like a lot of the like just very popular ones, but there's often like, you know, just some sort of musical moment of like, you know, there's something tense happening. Okay. And so like I usually just like impose the things I like to do on the and see what I can get away with.
I bet they love it. Yeah, really.
Yeah, and so it's just kind of like sometimes it's just like a joke. Like I'll try and be like, you know, I almost every musical I'm like, you know, there's somewhere I could put a cymbal screech in. And if nobody says no to me, then it just happens.
What can you? I mean, it must be such a neat thing for the actors to have happen whilst they're emoting and doing their thing. To have, you know, because the cymbal like that. That's, I know what you're talking about. That specific texture when you're rubbing the stick on the cymbal. I mean, it's just yeah, it's just invokes so many feelings of, like you said, tension and so on and so forth. That yeah, it must be it's beautifully done, and it must be a wonderful thing for the actors on stage to kind of to have around them, you know.
Yeah, we did Secret Garden was, I think, the last one I did before COVID happened, and then there was no more theater happening, and we did that out in Qualicum, and yeah, there's like a big scene where like it happens over a very long period of time, and it was really fun to hear feedback about like how you know, if I was feeling more adventurous with it one night, it definitely affected how they were feeling about it on stage, and they would give me that feedback, and then I would feel bad about some of the nights where I was, you know, maybe a little more lackluster, and I'm like, oh my God, I didn't, you know, give them enough. I don't know. So it's from stuff like, what's that?
Sorry, the reason it feels a little disjointed, I have a latency with you guys, so that's when I'm chiming a little bit after the fact. I'll see if I can reduce my input a little bit.
So some things from musical theater, and then there's some friends here in Nanaimo that put on puppet shows, and I'll do like improvised drums along to the puppet shows.
Cool.
And there's another guy, Bob, who brings like his setup of like, he's got this crazy homemade instrument of like these bass strings. So it's like a bass neck or something. And he puts it on top of like an empty tom with no head on the top and has it like going through something, and it makes like really crazy ominous sounds, and we improvise together like along to this like really strange puppet show that's going on. And so yeah, I guess I was thinking mostly about those sorts of things.
That's so cool. That's awesome, man.
That's amazing.
I would love to see you do that alongside some of the.
I was gonna say, are there any recordings of that, Alicia, of those puppet shows?
I think there might be, of the most recent one that happened at Halloween.
Nice. I'd be
I
interested
think.
to hear that too.
Yeah, I'll have to find it. I could post it on Facebook,
Cool.
maybe, or if Alex Hicks is watching, maybe you could post it on Facebook.
Can I ask you a couple questions about the solo?
Sure, yeah.
Is it cool to get into it?
Yeah.
More? Yeah. I really love that solo, and I also noticed this kind of rim sound that you're getting so many sounds from the rim, like just this beautiful amount of timbre, like and hitting it so many different ways, and I was just curious, and it was like a thematic thing for me that kept on coming through the solo and kept on coming back, this idea of that rim shot sound. And I was curious, is that just a sound that you're hearing lately, or like is that something that you're drawn to in general, or is that kind of more something lately? It felt like something that you were kind of hearing, because it kept on coming back in new and surprising ways, like you were threading the sound back into the solo.
Yeah, I really like the sound. Yeah, and I guess I'd kind of like bring it back as like different voices, I guess. Like I'm hearing like the kind of rim stuff, and then even like the rim with the tom stuff is like different voices from just like, hitting the drums dead on and they just ring. With those notes and having them kind of like play off of each other's different characters almost.
Yeah, because it's so cool to hear you talk about the puppets and the musical theater characters, because I do neither, but I work primarily with dancers. And when I was listening to this, I was just thinking, oh God, what I would do to have this with a dance piece. It's just so evocative, and I just felt like, yeah, I wanted to dance listening to it, or see dance. So it's so interesting to hear that you're talking about characters in a different medium. I mean, I don't know if you worked in dance, but you should.
No, not unless they're singing and acting at the same time. But I was really like, when you asked me to do this at first, I was mostly thinking of maybe like doing it with someone else. Like there's a juggler friend I have, and like him and I want to collaborate and have done a few things in the past where like he'll just kind of like freeform juggle and like putting music along to that. And so, yeah, so I guess dancers, it would be similar, maybe just like somebody else doing some sort of different activity and like playing off of that.
And do you play live to jugglers and other circus performers?
Not often. I think there was just there was one show we did here, and then hopefully my friend Catelyn and I will be doing more things in the future with like putting music along to his circus stuff.
And can I ask this one more question? I'm just really curious because when most drummers take this on, they say that they'll do the gig, but they've never been asked to do this gig, and often they say they're quite nervous, and it's just it comes kind of out of the blue, a little bit left field. And I was just curious how the experience was for you doing the drum solo, and if it was your first time, and if you would ever do it again. If you have anything to say.
Yeah, no, I was. It was really nice to be asked. I was super nervous, and you'd sent some videos of other people performing, but I didn't want to watch any of them because I didn't want to like latch on to somebody else's idea of what they did for it before, and I figured I'd have to like go back through now and watch all the videos. I thought that maybe I'd be too nervous about like comparing myself to them. So I kind of just like, I went to a few videos and just found out how long they played for. And that was just to, make sure I was somewhere in the ballpark of it. And that was the only thing I watched beforehand.
But sometimes that's the best way sometimes, right? I mean, really, one can be thwarted in all sorts of ways, right? And based on what other people do. But at the end of the day, you can approach something like this multiple directions, right? Multiple directions. So I think in order to stay true to your vision, and if you don't have a lot of time, right, just focus on, okay, what would I want to say within that amount of time? I know exactly what you mean because I've had to do it before. It's like, okay, I'm not going to look at anything else. I'm just going to do it and then look at it afterwards.
Yeah. But yeah, for doing it, I think I would do it again. It was really fun to take on the challenge of it, and yeah.
Let's say one thing, and one thing that I found. Because I know, Ben, you've done quite a bit of free stuff before, too. Adrian, I've never seen you play, but do you play in some of that stuff as well? Like, would you say you hang in a free setting?
Yeah. Can you hear me? There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ben asked me to perform for the series last year.
Okay.
Last year, yeah. And so that was, I guess, that was my first time that I performed solo in like that sort of setting. And that was a trip because it was like live, where there's people around and like, and that was, that's cool too. Cause like I think it's, especially now, I don't know what you all think about this, but like recording yourself versus performing, do you feel there's any difference between that? Like kind of your approach to playing when we're talking about a recording versus performance?
Big time. I don't know about you guys. I prefer recording, Depends. I mean, it depends on the room, right? I mean, you guys are going to see my video. I mean, it's like, I couldn't play like the way I did at the studio that Ben has because it would just crush everybody's ears, you know what I mean? It would be horrible. It would be an awful experience for everybody. And then when you do that, then you're playing differently. And that's the thing. My question was to Alicia. I've noticed, especially when it's a lower dynamic type of improvisation, which is what yours was. It was gorgeous, and it was lower dynamic. it's so important, I find, to actually have your drums, the tone of them is something that sings and it resonates for a long duration. And yours really did, you know. And my question is, how important or how much emphasis do you place on the pitch and the resonance of the drums for you to actually pull that off?
Oh, Alicia, I think you're muted.
I
think you're muted, Alicia.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
That was good.
It's funny because like I hate tuning my drums. Yeah. And so there's really long periods of time where like I won't do anything, or I'll do like strange adjustments, and then like it'll fall into a place where I really like the sound of it and I won't want to change it. And even leading up to this, I was like, oh man, I should probably like tune my drums. And then I didn't.
No, it's nice. Like I said, when you hit it, it sounds beautiful. The curve, it doesn't go, you know how sometimes it feels like it just falls off, like boom. Yours sounded beautiful, and so it sounded like you pay a lot of attention to that stuff. And if you don't, then you're naturally gifted in that sense.
Thank you. Yeah, it's funny. It's always been something that like I've wanted to get better at so that I can more easily get what I want out of my drums. But it's been like a really big hodgepodge of like trying stuff out, and yeah. I'm glad that they happened to be sitting at a nice place.
It sounded great. Mine, my tuning is not good. I don't pay any attention to that. But the thing is, I find sometimes if you're in a setting like my solo, when you hear it, I am hitting harder, so you could get away with having a drum that sounds horrible. A lot of people agree with that. I'm sure that if any of my friends are watching, some of them are so meticulous with tuning, but I am not. So to watch that was really pleasurable.
Cool. Thanks.
Yeah, Alicia, I loved your backdrop too. The lights and like the little orbs. It's a very
cool.
comfy vibe. So that's cool.
Thanks.
Yeah. What do y'all think? Should we listen to Issah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to say anything beforehand, Issah, or should we talk after?
Well, I'm good. I mean, I feel bad putting you all through this. I mean, it is what it is.
Mate.
I'm like the time shop. But yeah, we probably because I can't stay for too much longer. So we can check it out and then talk a little bit. Then I have to leave.
Cool.
Sounds good. All right, y'all. Yeah, I'll just transition to the video here. I'm gonna mute myself here. And yeah, see you in a few minutes.
Okay.
Hey everybody, welcome back. We just witnessed some mind-boggling grooves. Very groovy grooves.
Yeah.
Damn.
It's funny, the stream doesn't stream for some reason when I'm watching it, but it's all good.
Oh, yeah.
I've seen it. I didn't even
yeah, you've seen it. That's for sure.
I need to see it again. Yeah, man.
Yeah, I need to go back and I guess if this is recorded later to watch the end of it, because I was still like, I think a bit from the end while everybody came back.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
me
think
too.
Ben, what do you think? I think we should do what we did maybe last time, right? We can upload the videos.
Yeah, with your permission, we'll upload both the videos so they're just permanently on the YouTube page after this. So we'll have them up like this afternoon.
Yeah, sounds good.
But up to you. We can talk about that after. No pressure.
Yeah, sounds good.
Can
I
I-
love that. Thank you.
Issah, how did you decide what you were going to do when Ben asked you to do this?
Well, I mean, but what I'm doing is it's kind of specific, right? It's not as like when I watch yours seems very what's the word? Like that style of drumming to me seems a little bit more introspective, right? And expressive as a result of being a perspective. What you did, my thing is it's more specific, right? It's like I was talking to Ben. Like some drummers, I find are able to really marry the craftsmanship with art. You know what I mean? Musicians in general, I think, there's two aspects to art in general. I put the music, and you have the more artistic side and the more craft side. I feel what I'm doing is very much craft. You know, it's just that things that have been done before, recapitulating ideas based on players that we stand on the shoulder of giants of. So yeah, I mean, it's a bag of things that I have, and I just ended up putting it out there. But I don't find it as yeah. I mean, I guess to answer your question, I don't feel it's very stock. I find when I'm watching what I'm doing. You know what I mean?
No, it was great. I wonder, like, how you, I guess, how did you think about it? Did you just like explore different things in your groove as you went along, or did you have anything planned? Was it all spontaneous?
Like, you know, specific genres will dictate the direction that you go in film-wise, right? And so, like, I don't know, like there's all sorts of different little sub-genres, let's say, within drumming and improvisation with drums, right? So, you know, one could have, like, the way I think about it, like, I could approach a particular groove like this guy, like, let's say, Keith Carlock. So, you guys know who Keith Carlock is? Yeah, he's a great drummer. Carlock, yeah. Or you know, or I could approach it more like let's say like an Aaron Spears, like a gospel job type thing, or you know then or etc. etc. So usually when I play, it's often kind of pushing it in the direction that somebody else has done it before. So it's you know. So I guess that, but to answer your question, it's not as there's not as much thought behind the entire composition. I should have done that, then I would have come up with something that was really unique.
Can I ask?
I thought it was fascinating to hear the distinction between the two, how you two approach this. You know, like it was very different, and I think it was both equally as beautiful. You know, just because you know like and I think it's very interesting like the ideas that we bring when we talk about improvisations, right? Because Issah, you're referencing like you know the people that you've listened to and like the genres that you have experience playing, right? And like and it really shows that like you're that type of like that player in this context, right? Because you're just switching between these feels, like being so seamless. It's just like it's just all there, you know. So yeah, well, it was incredible like to hear that contrast, right? Because Alicia, I feel like your solo was very atmospheric, very textural, and then we see Issah just ripping these crazy grooves and just like you know and just the way that it all melds together, regardless of like the approaches, I think is really fascinating. So like congratulations to both of you. It's like very inspiring. Thank you.
Yeah.
Can I ask, brother? Issah, I know you got to go. Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, shoot, brother.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just I got two, but I'll start with one and see how we go.
So good. Yeah.
I just like me and you were talking last night about Africa, and I just visited recently Cape Town, South Africa.
Yeah.
And I wanted to just talk about kind of groove and ghost noting and feel, like subdivision. Because one of the things that I love about your playing, and you know I've known you're playing for more than kind of 10 years, and such a big fan of your playing. And one of the reasons I love it is because of your subdivisions and the groove that you're able, like any groove that you do, any style, you always make a groove so hard, regardless of the genre or the type of music. And I think a lot of that has to do with how you're subdividing the beat, and also just where you're putting ghost notes and kind of how you're making it feel really good. And when I visited Cape Town, I saw some drummers there, and it really blew my mind and changed how I thought about creating feel, because the way in this case they were playing like Latin, it was a bunch of people from Cape Town playing like a Latin groove, but the way they were subdividing it and feeling it was completely different. and it seemed like a cultural, in this case, a cultural thing, because I had never heard anyone feel it in this way, and I was really curious, how come it feels so different? And I was looking at the sticking, and just the way they were ghost noting and subdividing the beat was totally different, something that I would have never thought of. I'd never heard it done that way. And it really kind of blew my mind that there's so many different ways of subtly interpreting these. In this case, it's, bossa nova or some kind of Latin rhythm. So I was just curious, you spending time in Canada and also Kenya, if you can relate to this kind of idea of culture or context or origin influencing the way that we subdivide and ghost note a groove.
For sure. I mean, as you're talking, one thing that comes to mind, that leaps immediately to mind, as they say, is the fact that, I've always been fascinated by, like we were talking about, like perception and all that stuff. And when you think about it, the system of music, and just go with me here for a little bit, but the system of music, when you think about it, it's far less, I shouldn't say technical, but it's far less complicated than the system of language, right? The system of language is really hard. When you think about the amount of words that individuals know in their native tongue, it's, just like thousands and thousands, right? I don't know what the actual figure is. I've looked it up before, but I can't really remember. So as a species, we were probably not, I lost everybody. Is everybody there?
Yeah.
Okay. As a species, it's likely that we were not biologically evolved to be able to play music. Music is something probably like mathematics. It sort of hinges on different cognitive capacities that we have evolved for. And that's for certain. I'm not making that up. That's something out there. So when you think about language, if the language is the first really complicated system that we have, and the fact that music really hinges on the language faculty, it does, just like mathematics. It's likely to think that the minor differences in language have something to do that in the way which we interpret music. And so when I look at, let's say, the native tongue of where I grew up, East Africa, was Swahili. I mean, to a large extent it was the language that the locals all spoke to each other. And that language has a different kind of melody than English, right? And it's very much like the people who speak it nicely, they really sound like they're singing the song as they're speaking it. I lost Ben now. Oh, yeah. And so I think that maybe there's something definitely culturally. I would, if I had a bet, I would think that cultural divide in terms of what you're referring to probably has something to do with largely with the language. You know what I mean? The languages in which we learn and the way we end up speaking them, you know what I mean? And also, I think one thing that's really strong in music, especially the music that we all play, is just the African-American influence. You know what I mean? And that too, when you look at, we all have friends out there that are brothers. Brothers, I've played for parties before that are, let's say like a group of brothers from the States, and man, like the way they're talking with each other, they throw down, and the way they dance, they throw down seriously, you know what I mean? So that stuff, I think that it's part and parcel of the reason that some cultures go towards music in the way that they do. And I mean, what's interesting, you look at Indian culture, right? I find that really fascinating because, like I was talking to you, Ben, the other day, I've been, even like some of that, like the Sakatu stuff that we all learned in school, right? Academy, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, that's going to lead you down a certain way of interpreting your instrument. I was going to go somewhere else, but I want to just stop it there because I've spoken for long enough.
And thank you. And can I ask you one more question?
Yeah, for sure.
This is kind of a comment, I guess, and then if you want to comment on it. But another thing I love about your playing and always have is that your ability to make melodies in each limb. Like, I just can't believe it. It's so, like in this solo, you're doing just these really complex, really beautiful melodies in each limb, like simultaneously, and weaving kind of back and forth. So the whole hierarchy and paradigm of drumming is like abolished, I feel, in this really beautiful way of the hi-hat melody could be just as important as you know, the dominant hand, for example, or as the bass drum. And it made me think of when we went to BCC together, me and Issah, and I remember back in the day, you were like just devouring every book that had four-way independence at a speed that was kind of amazing to me. And as I was kind of, you know, just completing the basic requirements to get through school, you were just like, I remember shedding every book I had ever seen for four-way independence. And I think it's very clear when you play that you've spent some time doing that. But it's way beyond that. I'm just curious if, yeah, how much that played into it. Obviously, just the getting the facility together, which you really did, I think, a very young age. But then how, if you just have any comment on this idea of each limb being a melody maker, and maybe the hierarchy and paradigm of that in the actual playing.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting thing, right? I mean, I remember Mark, my stepdad, and I don't want to throw him under the bus right now, but like he made an interesting comment when I was younger. My stepdad, he's a great guitarist, and he said to me that one thing he didn't like about theory is that it feels as if you learned a lot of that stuff, that it might inhibit you from being expressive. And even at a young age, I was like, I don't know, that seems strange, because theory is, you know, there to broaden your base, and then, you know, but there is a point, I think, when you're really in it and you're learning a lot, it's hard to see outside of that and be objective and then express something that's, you know, part of your deep inside the way in which you see the world, or express yourself in a way that's profound and all that, etc. You know, the things that we all hope to do. So I think, yeah, for sure, like, I guess, yeah, I have put a lot of time into stuff like new breed and syncopation and all that stuff. But then ultimately, you know, you would hope that you would be musical with it. And I think if there's anything that I would say in correlation to what you were saying, it's an interesting task to keep learning and to take, like, let's say if I was to learn right now, and I don't know how to do it, let's say to write 12-tone music, right? I don't know how to do it. Never done that before. I've written a lot of music, but I've never written 12-tone music. I would think that learning curve would be so, you'd have to get so deep inside of it that for a long time you'd be really kind of expressing yourself very technically. So I guess I would throw that question out back to all three of you, and I'd ask you, do you ever find that there's almost like a little bit of a delineation between the technical stuff which we all need in order to kind of learn the tools that are out there and that people have spent a lot of time working on, and then the artistic side, which is more feelings and emotions and more abstract things? And I guess one thing I find about like jazz music in particular is that it sort of asks you to marry both of those. You know what I mean? You have to be expressive and all that stuff, but you got to pay attention to the forms too. You know what I mean? You know, you got to have that foundation. So what do you guys think about that? I'm just throwing it out there as well, to make it a conversation.
I definitely think that I think you're onto something there, Issah, because I think especially for me right now, because I'm kind of going through this like stage of like studying and like, yeah, you know, reconceptualizing things. I think there is a point where it becomes difficult to like maybe separate yourself from like what you learn technically and then applying it into like a more like, you know, artistic, emotional context, right? And I think maybe a part of that is just like maybe just time, you know, just like having that like sit within you, and then also like, you know, as you gain experience playing with other people, you know, being exposed to playing on your own, you know, like I think those are when like kind of like those two things can potentially like kind of come together in a little bit more clear way for you as an individual. I think it has for me in the last like couple of years, like studying and like, you know, playing in performances that I never would have thought I've been able to do. But I think that's always the struggle, you know, to a certain extent. It's just like how do you actually apply like what we learn technically to something that is musical, something that, you know, that we express through our emotions. And like, I don't know, for example, I don't know if you are familiar with Mark Juliana, this great drummer.
Yeah.
Like he talks a lot about this too, like, and I think his ideas make some sense to me, like the idea of like, you know, like the subdivision in which you play a rhythm has a different emotional feeling, or like, you know, at which dynamic you can play the same figure, but you can vary the dynamic level, and that already changes the emotional feeling, you know. So I think his kind of way of thinking about it has helped me a lot, like kind of maybe like already have that union while you're working on the technical, because it's like, oh, it's like, because if I know that if I play a certain figure at a certain dynamic level at a certain rate, that's already conveying an emotion, then I can potentially practice like that emotion with those two parameters, for example. And then there's like other ones that he talks about, right? So yeah, man. But I think it's a constant struggle, like for any crafts person, you know, like whatever we're talking about, right? I think that's kind of like a fundamental thing that we have to like kind of just deal with somehow, you know. I don't know if there's like an objective like way to like really nail that down, but I think it's through just experience that we do that, you know. And it definitely shows, for example, for you, man, like you're like what we just saw now is just a kind of like maybe an embodiment of that, for example, you know. No, for sure, man.
I would well, you know what? I got to be honest. I mean, I appreciate the compliment, but not so much for me. I mean, my story is that I like, let's say everybody takes in the world in a different way. Everybody has, how do I put this properly? Like, if I was to express myself in a way that I feel like, okay, this is the way I would like, this thing accurately depicts the way I felt at that point in time, I don't think it would be a drum solo. You know what I mean? Because I'm just a little bit more black and white, maybe in what I need to express myself. So I find like lyrics are a wonderful tool in order to kind of, you know, convey something to the listener. And drums don't necessarily have that, and that's a big thing, right? I mean, lyrics, that's huge.
Right.
You know,
right.
But it's interesting. Yeah, it's a good topic of conversation. Ben, Alicia.
Oh, Alicia, I think you're muted. Maybe.
Yes.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I've never been like a super technical drummer, and so but yeah, you know, I've often like learned a new thing, and then, you know, you try and shoehorn it in everywhere and impose it on your music, and then, like you were saying, just as like, I think as you move forward with it, you can be a little more tasteful and expressive with what you choose to put in. I don't know.
Yeah, totally. It's a really interesting thing. And you know, yeah, I mean, one thing I find that's really cool about what Ben's doing right now, he gives drummers a situation in which they could use the drums as a tool to maybe say things that they wouldn't be able to say in a different scenario. Because drums, when you think about it, we're so much based on the fact that we're an accompanying. Like, essentially our instrument is there to accompany others. You know what I mean?
Totally.
Yeah. But I got to get going. As much as I love talking right now, I do have to get going.
Sounds good.
Cool. Yeah,
it was really nice to meet you.
Likewise, Alicia.
There's some great stuff on that topic, also from Evelyn Glennie, who I've studied with, and that's another really good good source.
Before I go, I'd love to hear what you said in it.
Okay, thanks, man. I was just distracted. My dad's calling me on repeat. Sorry about that. So every time he calls me, I get out of this chat. So that's what I've been doing for the last 2 minutes.
Yeah, we know what's going on. That's right.
Yeah. My dad's calling me anyway. So I gotta text him back, say, Dad, I'm live streaming. Dad, stay out of my bedroom. Dad. I'm actually in his bedroom. I'm in his apartment right now. I can't say that. I can't even say that. But I'll just say quickly, the Evelyn Glennie's take on what we're talking about is that she doesn't consider herself a drummer or percussionist as much as a sound creator. And so that's kind of a neat standpoint already. Like, okay, we're talking about sound. We're not in the world of drumming anymore. We're in the world of sound and creating sound. And then from that, it's quite liberating, actually. And then that's a different kind of departure point, maybe in itself. And then one of the things she says when you study with her is she'll get you to play like a C major scale, on the marimba, or a piece of, snare drum rudiment, something very basic, maybe some eighth notes or whatever, something very basic. And then she'll say, okay, we'll play that same scale, and now play it like you're being chased by a pack of bears. Oh, wow. Okay. It's already very different. Okay. Now play the same C major scale up and down. We've heard it a million times, but play it like you're going to play it to a group of children, little babies. Oh, wow. It's quite different from the bears. Now play it like you're trying to sell it to a staff room full of board members on some big committee. It's like a PowerPoint presentation at the C scale. Oh, wow. Okay. It's different than the babies now. So I love this idea. That really helped me, like, just boom, open things up to, even with one C scale or with some eighth notes played on a snare drum, how much emotion or different things we can then pack or unpack from that simple task.
Yeah, it's fascinating, man. It's so wild. And I mean, just again, like, just to share with you guys because it's relevant. I found my own trip with the drums. Like, I